Khan here for Seconds Out with Frank Smith in New York. Frank, sir, good to see you. Thank you for giving me some of your time. How you doing?
I'm good, mate. Good to be here in New York, enjoying it as always, and ahead of a massive show on Saturday night.
Let's get to that show. New York, concrete jungle where dreams are made of, so is the line. Edgar Berlanga has dreams of getting into big fights, namely one against Canelo, but he can't slip up against Jason Quigley. Firstly, is Berlanga the big monster that the public, the media have built him up to be? And will the fight with Jason Quigley prove that if he wins in fashion?
He needs to go out and win in fashion if he wants to talk about these big fights. You know, his aim has always been to deliver these for us to deliver the big fights. He wants the Canelo fight. He wants all the biggest names out there, but he needs to go in there and have a huge, standout performance against Jason Quigley on Saturday night. You know, he went through 16 fights of first round knockouts, something like that. And then I think, people, the next fight didn't end in a knockout, and then people, automatically change their view on you. They're the kind of fights you need. That you can't just step up from first round knockouts and go in there against the likes of Canelo. I think Jason Quigley is going to be a perfect test for him on Saturday night. And if he does what we believe he can do, then, he's in line for those big nights and big fights.
How does he differ from the super middleweights that you've worked with in the past and currently work with now? What does he bring to the table that made you want to sign him in the first place?
Well, look, he's got a lot of star quality. You only have to see the following that he's created over the years, and he's built up. And that's important as well. He looks the part, he talks well, he does all the media. So many fighters these days don't want to do all the work that goes alongside it. But, Edgar's up for it. Edgar wants to become a superstar in his own right, and he knows what needs to be done to make that happen. And look, he's gone out there, he's had those 16 first round KOs, and that's what built his name to begin with. Now is the next stage of his career, and like I say, he's gone through those learning fights, and hopefully on Saturday night we see a huge performance from him, because that will set up those big nights. And we believe he's ready to go into them.
Those big nights are on the horizon, like you mentioned, and like I've mentioned as well. Canelo, John Ryder, Golovkin. What's the most likely big night should he come through the test the weekend?
He might fight Billy Joe Saunders as well. I've seen them two going back and forward on Instagram DMs. Yeah, that might be another one for the future. The names you mentioned there, Canelo's obviously a key focus for him that he's been talking about for a long time. Is it this year? Unlikely. Maybe something for next year. The other aim for us as well is to look at doing something in Puerto Rico with him. Also, we'd love to do a show there. But all those names you mentioned would be great fights. So let's see. He's ready for the big nights.
Through the rest of the card, what takes your fancy and what should boxing fans look out for if they're tuning in the weekend?
Looking forward to seeing Adam Kownacki back in action. Big heavyweight, big ticket seller, looking to rebuild, coming off the back of a tough few years, I guess, in his career, looking to rebuild up and get back in those big fights in the heavyweight division. Rashad Mati as well is in an intriguing fight on the card. Khalil Ko as well. So, some great fights throughout the card, and should be a great show come Saturday.
Kownacki to rebuild and then potentially go into a fight with Chisora. I remember there was a contract that was put out there that never eventually got signed, but is that a fight that still interests you given Chisora's recent outings in the ring?
Possibly, yeah. I think Derek's also looking at maybe the Dillian White rematch as well. That we all know what happened in those two fights, how brilliant they were. But look, Adam's looking to get a win on Saturday night and then be in the discussions for these big fights. There's so many heavyweights looking for opponents. If he can go and get a win or a couple of good wins, he could be well placed to be in those discussions for those fights.
I asked this to Eddie and I'll ask this to yourself. Obviously, Eddie's much more front-facing when it comes to it. But I said to him there's maybe a bit of a small change in ethos when it comes to fighters who are expected to win fights and then eventually lose. I gave the examples of Gary Cully. Edgar Berlanga is one of them, says the same thing. If he loses to Jason Quigley, it's a fight really he should win. Ramla Ali was another one this weekend where he said, look, really should have won that fight. Whereas maybe in the past, it was kind of said, they'll rebuild back, and it wasn't mentioned kind of about the fights needed to be won there. Do you kind of feel a difference in ethos in terms of when fighters do lose and what their prospects are going forward if they've suffered a loss that wasn't expected?
Yeah, but then at the same time, not every night you can be the top. You can't be the peak you. And sometimes you are going to lose fights, unless you're Floyd Mayweather. People are going to go through their career and lose fights. I think providing people always give it their all. If talking about, so rather than talking about the future, talk about, Ramler Ali at the weekend, for example. People want to see entertainment. That's the truth. That's what people watch boxing for. It's all good being silky skills, looking great, but after a while, it can maybe get a bit boring. People want to see entertainment, and in that fight with Ramler Ali, being the example, you saw entertainment. Lee Wood as well. Lee Wood when he fought Maurizio Lara. If you take risks and take real fights and go out on your shield, people respect that, and there will always be a place for you to come back in big fights. Because I don't think a loss matters as much. It matters more when you're 3 or 4-0, is the reality. Once you get to 10, 12, whatever, 0, and you're taking real fights, if you lose in those fights, you can always rebuild and come back, providing you're willing to take challenges and you will always give it your all. If you go out there and sort of just give up, again, I'm not a fighter, so it's not me saying, well, then you're right. But what people want to see is people giving it 100%. And for example, Ramler Ali, who is probably the latest example, she went out there, she didn't get the win, but she gave it 100%, everything she had. And she'll be back because people will be interested in seeing her because she's in entertaining fights. Fighters lose all the time. And that's where we've got it. I think we've got it wrong in the past in boxing, is you say someone loses, they're finished. Look how good UFC is. It's because people take real fights and are willing to take challenges, because it's not the end of a career on a loss. It doesn't help if you lose against someone that's you're in a 95% chance of winning fight. That doesn't help. But if you go in there in a real fight and you give it your all and show heart, you'll always have a place, in my opinion.
Appreciate the answer. Good answer. I want to move on to a couple of things outside of the current boxing sphere, but obviously it's still news. Dillian White saying he doesn't feel like he has a serious offer on the table from Matchroom, which I found quite interesting. What's the difference in price in terms of his valuation, your valuation for the fight against Anthony Joshua?
Yeah, I saw some numbers floating around which aren't necessarily correct. Look, a fighter will always, especially in this circumstance as well, you're dealing with two fighters who will set their value as to what they think the fight's worth, for each of them. And if Dillian White doesn't think that's the value, then that's well within his right to, say that. But I don't think, I think it's unlikely we see that fight, like, Eddie said. But, everyone has their right to set what price they want. If they get it, well done to them. And if they don't, they then have to make a decision as to what they do.
What's the level of risk then in terms of then losing him? Look, you'll move for a different opponent for Anthony Joshua, but then you potentially lose having Dillian White on the platform. Dillian White is proven to be someone who can sell pay-per-views with a good opponent on the other end, and potentially another promoter can pick him up. So is there still the interest to field a Dillian White fight on DAZN, or is he likely to go onto a different platform?
It all depends on the right fights being there, the right opportunities, and being able to deliver a financial offer that he feels makes sense. Like I say, we all determine our own worth. I could leave tomorrow and say I'm not getting paid enough money. It's up to me, no one else. Same for the fighters. And look, fighters deserve to make as much money as they possibly can because it's a dangerous sport. But there is a value which we all work towards. Sometimes people will overpay. Sometimes people will pay more than, we deem the value to be because they need it for other reasons. So let's see. There's potential with other fight. Like I say, people are talking about is the Chisora. I heard yesterday is the Chisora fight a discussion for Dillian White? Maybe. We all know there's been a lot of talk. Chisora is obviously heavily involved in the Saudi events and discussions. So maybe that's a possibility. I don't know. But we'll see what he chooses to do next.
Is there a discussion for Anthony Joshua to be taken on the opposite corner, Jarrell Miller?
No, that's not in our discussions right now at all. We're still planning for August 12th, working through a list of opponents currently with a training team, and then the plan is still to try and make the Deontay Wilder fight for December. We're 100% set on making that happen.
Speaking to Eddie, he kind of said it will never be on the table, and a lot of boxing fans will want that and see that with Jarrell. Is there a way back for him generally, and is it a shut door for Matchroom and Jarrell to work together?
I think I've said in the past it would be very hard to do something again. You have to be careful in this sport because often you say things and then look back in years and years later and go, actually, things have changed, situations have changed. I think it's tough for Jarrell Miller in reality coming back, but you can never say never. I'm sure he'll get a big fight in time. And does he come out and does he do X, Y, Z to sort of apologise or make it right? I don't know, but it's hard to say. I don't think so, and it's my same answer that I said sort of when I got asked maybe a year or so ago, and that's kind of why you probably haven't also seen Jarrell Miller in any big fights since, and I'm not sure he's been in a running for any big fight since, but we'll see.
Who are those runners and riders then for Anthony Joshua? Speaking to Andy Lee, he's saying, look, I want Joseph Parker to be in the mix. Nothing stands on the table at the moment. Talk of Ajit Caballel. I heard some whispers of Otto Wallen as well, but who are the names on the list for Anthony Joshua if he's going to take an opponent in between this much mooted Wilder fight?
We're going through the list of opponents now. It has to be the right kind of opponent as well if we're planning for the Deontay Wilder fight in December, obviously. And going through the rankings, there aren't tons and tons of options because he's fought a lot of them. A lot of them are busy and tied up. So, it's a small group of fighters that you're probably looking at. And we're going back and forth with the team now to make the right choice.
When's likely to be the deadline for making that fight?
Next couple of days. Get it all together. Look, we're not far away. I think we're 7.5 weeks away now. AJ's been in camp training hard for a while. But yeah, next couple of days to get it done.
This whole Saudi thing is causing complications in a sense for fighters who do want that fight in between, and I can't get my head around how a world heavyweight champion in Tyson Fury says he can't find an opponent for that mid-fight. He says he's got an announcement coming up very soon. We're not sure what that is. It could potentially be this hybrid offer of a MMA UFC fight with John Jones or Ngannou. Do you know anything about that fight, and would you be interested in seeing a hybrid fight with Fury and one of these MMA stars?
Honestly don't know anything about what Tyson Fury's doing. Good luck to him. I'd love to see the Tyson Fury Alexander Usyk fight, and I know we obviously saw Usyk sign with Skill Challenge with the intent to make that happen in Saudi, obviously. I don't know what else Tyson Fury's got planned. Would I be interested? I think there's too much of a gulf in talent between, in boxing for Tyson Fury to fight one of those guys in a boxing ring. Tyson Fury is number one heavyweight in the world, as we all know. I'm sure there'd be intrigue, 100%. But I think when it actually comes down to the fight, it wouldn't be as interesting or as entertaining. But I'm sure the build-up would be fun, and there'd be a lot of intrigue across the markets. I don't know if it's realistic, honestly. But yeah, let's wait and see. But I hope that the Fury Usyk fight gets made, because we want to see an undisputed champion. It's great for the sport, and I can't see why it shouldn't get made. I think the numbers that are being spoken about, it's sort of a no-brainer. But we don't look after Tyson Fury.
Just reading in between the lines a little bit, is there maybe a sense from yourself of lack of confidence that the fight doesn't get made between Fury and Usyk?
Again, we're not involved with either of them. You only have to look at the negotiations that have gone on and on and on, and discussions and that fight's never been made. And that I'm not going to blame it. We'd love to see it. Again, I don't know all the ins and outs, but I do know there's been enough proposals and plans to make that happen at a sensible level where everyone should go, do you know what? It's the right fight to make. It's the fight people want to see. But we're focused on AJ Wilder beyond this in Saudi. That's our focus is Anthony Joshua, and always will be Anthony Joshua. So I can't really talk in too much detail on what they're doing. I hope it gets made. That Fury Usyk and Joshua Wilder on one night would be an event like no other, and probably an event we would never see again. So it would be a special night for the sport. But let's see.
With the Saudis hosting that event, as again it's whispered, what stands the position with the broadcast rights for those fights if it does get made?
Yeah, look, we've obviously got certain contractual commitments that we will abide by. I'm sure other people have, and I'm confident there's a way of making it work for everyone. It needs a lot of thought and it needs a lot of work, but anything's possible. And I think for an event of this scale, there is a way to make it work to keep everyone happy. And that will obviously be a discussion that is ongoing. We've got more meetings in London next week with the Saudi team and Skill Challenge and Prince Khalid, and hopefully things move in the right direction. All I can say is I know they're hot to trot to try and make something happen.
Will there be any play, or is there any possibility for play for exclusivity for broadcasting that fight at all?
Again, broadcasters, every broadcaster will have their contractual commitments, certain limitations within their contracts of what needs to be delivered or what their contractual obligations are to their broadcaster. I just mean more, the reality is if it's those 4 fights on one night, you've got, Fury's obviously got something, I guess, I don't know, I'm not party to it, but with BT, Anthony's got something with DAZN. I think there's a way of making it work, is what I'm trying to say. Obviously, every broadcaster would love to do it exclusively, but there will be the commitments that will make that difficult. But I'm confident that something can get done to appease everyone.
My colleague, Danny Flexen, did an interview with Ben Shalom, got to spend some time and try and get behind what we see of Ben on the camera. I wonder if you've had a little bit of time to check that out and what you thought of Ben Shalom maybe trying to show and showing a little bit more of himself, I guess.
Yeah, I saw parts of it. I've met him enough times. I know what Ben Shalom is. I would love to watch every interview, but I don't have a spare half an hour to watch interviews. I did leave some comments underneath though, under my fake name that I've got on my fake Twitter account.
What did you think of, and what's your position on Ben's current standing with Boxer and being that front-facing promoter right now?
Yeah, look, I don't want to. I saw he said he was built for it. It's hard to be built for. Like when you think the negative energy he gets is probably 5% of the negative energy Eddie gets online across social media. He's only a small way there as to what you have to put up with. I get enough. No one knows who I am. So let alone being the face of a platform like that. He's got the platform behind him, obviously. So it's hard. You have to be built. You have to be built for it to put up with it. Whether he is, time will tell. It's a hard business. I've spoken. I'm a bit of a weird character. I don't really take anything too seriously. I just laugh at everything, so I'm all right with it. But when you've been doing it for 15 years and constant every day shit, which is what it can be, this business, you have to be a certain way to put up with it. After a while, you get to enjoy it. You get past there's years are quite tough where you're like, this is bloody hard work, because every day a lot of things go wrong. But yeah, look, I wish him all the best in it. Obviously, as with all boxing promoters, we're all competitors. That's the reality of it. We've all got our own, job to do. And yeah, I think it's going to be tough, and I think he's found it tough putting up with what you have to put up with, and it only gets worse. This is nothing. It gets worse and worse and worse. But it's good fun. There's a great side to it, a lot of positives to it as well. It's a great business to be involved in. There's a lot of highs with it. And like I say, wish him all the best.
Ben raised a point which I thought was somewhat fair if you look at it in the context of boxing, and he said, look, boxing would be better if there was less back and forth between the promoters, and he kind of mentioned that he didn't like kind of being engaged in that sort of thing. How long, you were mentioning it kind of there, how long does it take to get comfortable in that kind of back and forth between people, and does it need to change, do you feel, Frank?
I don't think so. I think it's all a lie. You've got to take it with a pinch of salt. You can't... my biggest thing with... And I've said this in an interview before, is don't talk about it's all about the fighters, etc., blah, blah, blah. The reality is everyone's running a business, right? We're all running our own independent... Because if our businesses don't work, then we're finished anyway. And we're no good for our fighters regardless. So, no point talking. And... I think you just have to be honest. I think once you get to a certain point in business, in life, whatever, we're lucky as a business. We're a massive business. Not just in boxing, but like darts, snooker, everything we do, it's huge, right? And that's because people way before my time have worked very hard to create an amazing business, right? And it gives you that ability to just be honest, and just be honest with everyone. Be honest with your fighters. Be honest in interviews, because you can just say what you actually feel. Because if you don't enjoy it, or you have to lie to make it worthwhile, or to make people agree, you shouldn't be doing it. And I just think you've got to come out and say, like with that situation with Fraser Clarke wasn't happy. He was fuming about it. You got to do right by your fighter. But at the same time, if your view is, like with that situation, it can't be on DAZN, just say it can't be on DAZN. Just be honest with people. People will respect it. I'm not saying they'll agree with it, because they'll say, well, you're taking an opportunity away from, but at least they'll go, well, at least he was honest. It's the easiest thing, because that's all it came down to. So I think over time, the longer you're in this, the easier thing to do is be honest, because there's no hiding from anything. People are going to have a view and say you're mad or you're wrong, but at least be honest. It's the easiest thing to do. And in the long run, it becomes a lot easier as well.
I spoke to Ben post Fraser Clarke versus Marius Vac, and he said, look, we'll now consider, he said there's an offer on the table for Fabio Wardley, and he said they'll now potentially consider the fight being on DAZN. Is that, to your understanding, the two positions for the fight being made beforehand? Maybe it was felt that maybe the fight couldn't have been on DAZN.
Yeah, he's talking like Fraser Clarke. I love Fraser. I wouldn't say anything bad about Fraser Clarke. He's a tremendous fighter, done brilliant things both in amateur boxing and will do in professional boxing as well. So anything I say, I've utmost respect for Fraser. I've known him for a long, long time, and I don't believe he wanted this fight. So anything I say is I love Fraser Clarke, and I don't like talking bad about fighters in a sense, because they're the ones getting in the ring, risking their lives. It's funny how the stance has changed, where you turn down a British title shot. Again, I'm not blaming Fraser. This was one person or one group decided to do this. Fraser didn't really have a choice. Basically told that's what you're doing. You turn down a British title shot, and now he goes, we'd be happy to look at it being on DAZN. Yes, because there's no obligation to do it. You turned it down. You don't represent Fabio Wardley. So what you're saying is Fabio Wardley's with DAZN. He's the British champion, and Fabio Wardley now has no obligation to fight Fraser Clarke. So I've messed up because we've turned this shot down, and now the fight's not ordered. So, it's quite easy to go, I'd consider it on there. Well, that's not. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's lovely of you. Thank you for considering it on there. It's not Fraser Clarke. It's not Fabio Wardley's obligation to fight Fraser Clarke. He would have fought him tomorrow. The option was there. They turned it down. They didn't want to lose a purse bid. They didn't have confidence in winning a purse bid. Fine, just come out and say that. But now the narrative has to change. It's not, we'd be happy to do it this way. It's like, well, if the fight gets made, the fight gets made. Another fight might get made. Fabio's got no obligation to do it. So, yeah, very nice to say we'll do it this way. But it's like me saying anything, isn't it? It's like me saying we would be happy to consider Sol Dakers against Fraser Clarke on Sky. It's like saying that, isn't it? No, he's got no obligation to it. Oh, thank you very much. Could do that with hundreds of fighters. So it changes. It's completely changed. You're in a different position now. It's not ordered. No one's making you do it. They might order David Adelaide against Fabio Wardley. That might be the next fight for the British title. Who knows? Let's see.
So I appreciate there's no obligation then, and there is an upcoming order, it seems to be the case. But are you saying now, from your point of view, because there's no obligation, you're not really interested in doing the fight at all between Wardley and Clarke? I'm
not saying that. I'm just saying that's how you now twist the narrative to, I'll be open to looking at doing it on there. But because you're desperate now to deliver him an opportunity, because you've messed up and got him to remove himself from the position, and you've gone, oh God, now what are we going to do? So I'm not saying the opportunity's not there, but the sort of PR angle of, we'd be happy to look at DAZN. Well, where was that energy a month ago when you pulled him out? Because what you could have said is, right, we'll do it on DAZN because we're not going to win the purse bid. But they didn't want to then. So they wanted to control the messaging. And now they realise they weren't in any control before, didn't have any power. And it's like, we've made him a massive offer and he wants to do it, come and do it on Sky. It's like, he's the challenger. Again, no disrespect to Fraser Clark, but he's the challenger. Fabio Wardley's the champion. It'll be on his terms. Or if it's ordered by a governing body, it'll be on the terms set by them. And it goes to purse bids, and the fighters will make an absolute fortune, and they deserve to, and good luck to them. And whether we win it, whether Seconds Out win it on YouTube, whoever wins it, they'll get paid. And that's what it's all about.
Final question on this before I move on to the last topic or two. Look, we've seen Ben Shalom work with Queensbury. We've seen, obviously, you work with Queensbury. I can't remember to mind Boxer and Matchroom working together as of yet. If you have my apologies, does this, what happened with Clark and Wardley, kind of maybe put a dampener on things happening outside of fights being obligated to be made?
Not from our side. Like we will always work with everyone. We're very transparent in our business. We've worked with, recently we had Baumgardner box Michaela Meyer on the Top Rank Boxer show in London. That was on Sky. We did a deal there. We had no problems there. We consistently have fighters fighting on other shows. John Ryder fought Zach Parker on a Queensbury show. Golden Boy shows. Our fighters, we will do the best by our fighters. Obviously, we would like our fighters to, we want them to fight on the zone. But if a huge offer comes in for a fighter that we can't deliver, and it makes sense for our boxer, that's our obligation, is to do the best by our fighter. I don't believe the same energy from the other side. I think from a PR standpoint and a publicity spin, we want to work with everyone. Well, you had your opportunity. You didn't. So we're open to anything. I'll talk to anyone. I spoke to Ben Shalom. You don't have to have a friendly relationship. Never going to be your best mate. It's impossible. But, I'll talk to anyone. I'm the easiest person. I think I'm one of the easiest people in boxing to speak to. So we are always willing and open to listen to things. But at the same time, we're not the ones sitting here going, yeah, we'll do everything, and then pulling fighters out of purse bids. It's not the way we do business. We never will. So, but I guess it's learning as well. When you're inexperienced, you need these moments to learn. We've been lucky in that, I'm young, but I've been doing this since, I've been in the boxing business for 12 years now, and we've been in the high end of it for a long, long time. And the pressure of it, constant pressure and making decisions, etc. You make mistakes. And when you're inexperienced, you'll make mistakes. And they'll make more mistakes. And he'll learn. And, maybe over time he'll realise, look back and go, actually, Fraser Clark situation, dealt with it the wrong way. And fair enough. But again, like I say, it becomes a lot easier if you're just honest and open about it.
Moving on, speaking of doing the best for your fighters, Katie Taylor has invoked a rematch clause against Chantel Cameron. Now, with other fights potentially on the table, specifically Amanda Serrano, maybe that could be revisited. Do you feel the Chantel Cameron fight is the best fight for her on the table right now, taking that rematch?
Yeah, for sure. I think we saw a special night in May, on May 20th at the 3 Arena. And I think, look, the way Katie is as a person, that was the one thing she was focused on. After the fight was getting that. Look, Chantel Cameron went in there, she showed her skill, ability and class. She wasn't phased at all during that whole process. She wanted the toughest fight out there. She wanted to fight Katie Taylor, and she would, she was happy to go to Dublin, and she showed, immense class during all of that. And I think we're going to see a great fight again and a huge build-up. I think it's a brilliant fight for boxing, and looking forward to it. And like I say, it doesn't mean that in the future, there's so many fights for both of them as well in the future. Whether that's Katie Taylor fights Serrano in the future for sure. Chantel Cameron could be the Michaela Mayer fight's a big fight. Could be that, we're doing Sandy Ryan against Jessica McCaskill. It could be the winner of that fight. There's so many great fights to be made. So, it's all set on doing a rematch, and then we go from there. But big opportunity for both of them. And Chantel Cameron, I think you have to give her a lot of props as well, because she went into Katie Taylor's backyard, was a tremendous performance, and Katie Taylor gave her it all and showed what a great idol she is for people. The way she dealt with it afterwards as well with the loss. But I know from her, the way her mindset is, she was focused on getting that rematch and getting straight back in there. So respect to her as well.
Frank, finally, is Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. agreed? Is that the case?
Not agree. I mean, lots of talks. I keep saying I've spent a year of my life on this, so I hope it's not wasted. I hope we get to see this fight. It's a massive fight. It's a great fight for the sport, and I'm confident we'll get it over the line. Still work to be done. It's by no means done. There is still talk about could Eubank fight Smith, but the reality is the Eubank-Ben fight is the biggest fight that both guys want, because nothing compares to that fight. And that's nothing against Liam Smith. Liam Smith, had a tremendous performance against Chris Eubank Jr. And whatever happens, we'll get a massive fight from boxer. We want, in terms of where we stand, we want to make the Chris Eubank Jr. against Conor Benn fight.
Just picking that up with Frank Smith, you were just saying about your confidence of Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. getting over the line.
Yeah, look, I'm confident we can get there with it. There's been a lot of work done over the past year, obviously, to try and make this fight happen. I think it's a massive fight, and I believe we can get there. Like I say again, still work to be done, but I believe we can get there.
Frank, final thing. Is it done in a sense of the UK being the venue for it being off the table?
No. The UK part of that, and the obviously there's a UCAD situation ongoing. Look, Conor Benn can fight in other jurisdictions because he's been cleared by the WBC around the testing, and so he can fight outside of it's just the UK and the British Boxing Board of Control. Those discussions are ongoing, but hopefully the UK can be on the table for that fight, and we'd love to make it in the UK. I believe it's a stadium fight. I believe it's a massive fight for the sport.
Cheers, Frank. We'll leave it there. Thanks for taking us out, sir. Much appreciated.
Thank you.